Hey, greetings everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here with a show that we do on Sunday night called Two Music Commonalities Compared. This is a show that Ben and me put together. He had the idea. We worked it out so that we can do this. I did do something like this before called What's the Difference? But this is more extensive, I think, and it's expanded and includes a lot more different variety than that did. So you'll have to excuse me, I got a bit of a cough. So the two music commonalities compared, basically what we do is we take two things that have some similarity to them. They could be albums, they could be bands, they could be drummers, they might be vocalists, they could be bandmates, they could be all that. Today we're doing a couple of, the one we're doing today is two vocalists that were vocalists of the same band at different times. The band that has been chosen for this is AC/DC, and I picked the two albums I think were considered the outstanding albums for both of these vocalists. So you got Brian Johnson, who took over and became the lead vocalist on Back in Black, and this album absolutely crushed. I think it did over 40 million in sales. And then you have the last album with Bon Scott, who's the guy in the corner here. Wrong corner. This corner. Who died after this album. But this album did about 7 or 8 million copies it did. So it was the biggest one in his era. And we're going to talk about these two artists today. So, Bon Scott was the original vocalist for the band. Well, not entirely. Dave Evans was the original vocalist for the band. But for all intents and purposes, as far as the albums are concerned, it was Bon Scott. And he was with them for about 6 albums before he had an alcohol-induced death. It's not dissimilar to what happened to Jimi Hendrix, but definitely falls within that category of what happened to him. He is an outstanding frontman, great vocals, great lyricist, interesting stuff, powerful delivery, all of those things that you want in a frontman. Brian Johnson took over on this album, and, he's under the gun right off the bat. But he was also picked by Bon Scott. Bon Scott said, this guy is great. He liked him a lot. So they went with it, and they got him. The album knocked it out of the park. It's his first album, and he sells 40 million. He's a great frontman, has a absolutely memorable voice, absolutely. Has a strong stage presence. The hat gives him some character. He had a gruff voice, not dissimilar from Bon Scott, maybe a little bit more raw, I think. And he's been with the band since, except for a couple of years there where I think they had Axl Rose actually fill in on some of the live stuff anyways. And now he's kind of back with the band. But a great frontman with absolutely killer vocals and delivery and really high energy, very similar to Bon Scott that way. Now, who do I prefer? Well, I don't see how you can prefer anybody over Bon Scott, so he would be my preference. As much as I like Brian Johnson, and I do, other than this album with him on it, I don't really have any great ambition to listen to that stuff. I mean, they do have some songs on some of their later albums, and some of their later albums are not bad, but I don't generally go to them. I generally go to the AC/DC with Bon Scott, and I like several of their albums quite a bit, including this one. But I think the two of them both had great stage presence, both had distinct characteristics, both had distinctive voices. I don't think their voices really sounded alike, but they were very distinctive. And they both carried the band, I think, in a lot of ways. So, for me, These are two incredible vocalists. Now, I'm not sure, somebody else might be able to tell me this, but I believe that the lyrical writing was done by Bon Scott in the original AC/DC lineup. Did Brian Johnson take over doing the lyrics as when he took over the vocals? I think he probably did. I kind of remember that he did. Both of them have distinctive ways of putting their songs, both tongue-in-cheeky as well. Quite a little bit of that on their music. Some people may go as far as to say they're sexist as hell. I'm not going to disagree with it, but definitely their songs were standouts, and both artists did excellent jobs on both of the albums that I've presented here and on other material by them. So were there any major differences? Well, I think one of the major differences is that I don't think Brian Johnson had a kind of as much of a self-destructive kind of he didn't have as much of that self-destructive part of his personality that Bon Scott had. I don't think Bon Scott set out to kill himself or anything like that, but he definitely lived more of a party lifestyle than I think Brian Johnson did. But I could be completely wrong on this too. So to me, that's one of the differences. Brian Johnson's voice is really, really kind of almost in that Nazareth category of scratchy, rough, gravelly type thing, like C.F. Turner and just in that range of voice, where Bon Scott's is a little bit more nasally, I think, and has a little bit more of a rocky sound to it. So other than that, though, that's what I got. That's common, and some of the little bit of differences that is going on with these two. But both fabulous artists. You can't go wrong with any of them, no matter where you start in the AC/DC catalog. Whether you start with Back in Black and do as I did and go backwards, or start one of the later albums and go back, or start one of the early albums and go forward, you're gonna discover some absolutely killer music here, if you haven't already done that. So anyway, so that's two music commonalities compared. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe. That's much appreciated. Any comments about either of the singers or the band or their music or any of that stuff, you can put in the comment section below. Please don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss Look Back at a Classic Rock album tomorrow, or any of the albums that are coming out this week, or any of the shows that are coming out this week, And we will be back tomorrow night. We will be doing Look Back at a Classic Rock album. Next week, we will be back again doing two music commonalities compared. So take care and have yourself a good one. Good night. Goodbye.